All right, welcome to your very own deep dive. You know the one that you asked for about the parable of the talents?
Whoa, yeah.
We're going deep today.
We are.
So get ready.
Absolutely. I think what's really exciting about this parable is how deceptively simple it is.
Yeah.
On the surface, it sounds like it's just about being smart with your money, right?
Right.
But I think if we kind of dig a little bit deeper, it's really more like a blueprint for, how to approach any resource that you've been given. Like, think about it. Time, your relationships, even just the abilities that you were born with. Those can all be seen as talents that we should, be developing and growing.
Okay, so let's talk about those servants for a minute. The
Okay.
ones that receive 5 and 2 talents, they doubled their master's money. Not bad,
Yeah.
right? But is it just about, like, making a profit?
That's where it gets really interesting, I think. The master doesn't just praise them for the money, right? He commends them for their faithfulness, for their initiative. And it's almost like their ability to like multiply the money was proof that they had good character, that they were willing to take what they were given and make something more of it.
And that third servant, the one who buried his talent, I've always kind of felt bad for him. I mean, he was just trying to be responsible, wasn't he?
Yeah, it's easy to kind of sympathize with him, I think, especially in our culture where everyone's, a little afraid to take risks. But the parable is asking us to think a little deeper, What was that servant really afraid of? Was it just losing the money, or was it like the possibility of failing, you
Mhm.
know? Maybe not measuring up to what the master expected of him.
That's a good point. It makes me think, like, maybe the parable is telling us that playing it safe and never taking a risk, maybe that's a type of failure in itself.
Exactly. And think about the different kinds of risks that the parable, shows us. The first two servants, they invested the money, right? But they weren't just gambling. They were probably using their knowledge, their skills to make smart choices. The parable, it seems to be encouraging calculated risks, not just jumping in blindly.
So it's not just about taking any risk, it's about figuring out which risks are worth taking. The ones that actually let us grow and help us to develop our talents, whatever those talents may be.
Exactly. It's almost like the parable is asking us, what are you good at?
Hmm.
What opportunities are in front of you right now? And are you willing to sort of step outside of your comfort zone and take a chance on yourself?
Okay, now my palms are starting to sweat a little bit.
Yeah.
But I do think it's exciting, too. It makes it sound like this parable isn't about following some specific set of rules.
Mm-hmm.
It's more about understanding a principle, like a way to approach your life with a mindset of growth and potential.
I couldn't have said it better myself. And that's what keeps it relevant, right? Even though this parable is thousands of years old, it's not just a story about money or being successful. It's this challenge to live your life intentionally, to always be asking yourself, what have I been given? And what am I doing with it?
Mm.
How am I making the most of it?
It's funny, we hear people say maximize your potential all the time, but the parable of the talents it makes it so real, so tangible.
Yeah.
It's not just some vague idea. It's about really taking what you have and making it grow.
Yeah, and it shows us that growth isn't just a one-time thing. Remember, those servants, they weren't just given like a pile of money and told to go do whatever they wanted. They
Right.
had to really think about their investments, be careful with the resources, adapt, as things change. Kind of sounds familiar, doesn't it? Like a career or raising kids.
Absolutely. So the parable is kind of saying, don't just sit around and wait for stuff to happen. Get involved, learn new things, adapt, like it's a recipe for lifelong learning.
Right. Totally. Totally. And lifelong learning, it's not just about getting more knowledge, it's about actually using it, honing your skills. Even those setbacks, those are chances to learn, to adjust your approach.
Yeah, about those setbacks. The parable, it doesn't exactly promise that everything will be fine and dandy, does it?
Right.
I mean, that third servant, he gets punished pretty harshly.
Mm.
It can make you feel like, what if I screw up?
And that's where the idea of resilience comes in, right? The
Yeah.
parable, it acknowledges that not everything you try will be successful. Sometimes you'll miscalculate, make mistakes, maybe even completely fail.
So it's not about trying to avoid failure completely.
Mm.
It's more like developing that ability to bounce back, learn from those mistakes, and keep going.
Exactly. And that's a crucial skill to have no matter what talent you're working on. Like a musician practicing a tough piece over and over. Or an entrepreneur who keeps getting rejected, but keeps trying until they finally make that deal. That's resilience.
What I find interesting is it doesn't seem like the parable defines success just by the end result.
Yep.
It really emphasizes um, putting in the effort, being faithful,
Mhm.
having the courage to actually take action.
You're right. That's a great observation. Those first two servants, they were rewarded not just for the money they made,
Wow.
but for taking the initiative, being diligent, putting their faith into action. It's almost like the outcome, the final result, wasn't the most important thing. It was the process itself.
So it's not just about hitting some target, some goal. It's
Mm.
more about living a life that aligns with what you value, that lets you, grow and contribute something meaningful.
Yes. It's about making sure your actions match your values. It's about realizing that you've been given something really valuable, your talents, your time, your opportunities, and trying your best to use them wisely.
It's like we're all part of this giant orchestra,
Oh,
right?
I like that.
And each of us has this unique instrument to play. And the parable is urging us to not just learn how to play, but to actually play it, to add our own sound to the music.
I love that analogy. Just like when a musician practices hard and plays with, with passion, it makes the whole orchestra sound richer. When each of us embraces our own, talents and contributes, it makes the world richer, more complex.
You mentioned earlier that this parable, it's not just about personal growth. It's connected to things like social justice and caring for the environment, being good stewards of the earth. But how does a story about servants and money from so long ago, how does that relate to these really big, complex issues?
Well, remember how the master in the story, how he gave his resources to his servants and expected them to use them wisely for everyone's benefit? What if we take that idea and make it bigger, broader?
Okay, I'm following you.
What if what if we imagine that we're all, like the servants, the whole world, like a global community, all the servants in this parable, and we've been given this amazing planet, these ecosystems, all this human potential. And just like those servants, we're responsible for using them wisely, not just for ourselves, but for everyone.
So are you saying that things like working to make our world more sustainable, advocating for social justice, investing in things like education and healthcare, that all of that is like our modern way of multiplying the talents?
Exactly. It's realizing that we're all connected, that what we do, it affects others, it affects future generations, even the planet itself.
So the parable is telling us that we're not just individuals trying to be successful. We're actually caretakers, stewards of something much bigger than ourselves.
Right.
And we have a responsibility to use what we've been given, our talents, our resources, our influence, to build a world that's fairer, more sustainable, and thriving for everyone.
And this idea of being a steward, it's not about feeling guilty or burdened. It's about feeling empowered.
Yeah.
It's knowing that every single one of us can make a difference, contribute to something bigger than ourselves.
It's like the parable is saying, don't underestimate what you can do, even if it seems small. Every time you try to develop your talents, to give back to others, to make the world even a little bit better, that's you multiplying the good that you've been given.
That's a beautiful way to put it. And that feeling of being able to something, that belief that we can make a difference, that's really at the heart of what makes this parable of the talents so powerful, even today.
Well, we've talked about a lot in our deep dive into this parable of the talents, haven't we?
Yeah.
Risk, resilience, lifelong learning. We even got into how it connects to like social justice and taking care of the environment. But before we finish up, I'm going to bring it back to you, our listener. You're the one who asked for this deep dive.
Yeah.
So I'm curious, what's really sticking with you? What part of all this is resonating the most?
What always gets me about this parable is how it seems to like meet you wherever you're at in life.
Yeah.
It can speak to like an entrepreneur who's starting this risky new business or a parent who's at home raising their kid, helping them grow their own unique talents. It's a message that it just goes beyond age, your job, your background. It's like this universal call to action.
It's like the parable is holding up this mirror and it's showing us all the potential we have, right?
Yeah.
And then it asks, what are you doing with it? What are you doing to develop those gifts you've been given?
Exactly, exactly. And I think one of the most powerful things we can take away from this is this new way of thinking about success. It's not just about getting that promotion or all the awards or all the stuff. It's about living a life with purpose, using your talents to make the world around you better.
That's so important because it's so easy to get caught up in all those outward signs of success.
Yeah.
The promotions, the fancy things. But this parable reminds us that real, true fulfillment that comes from making sure your actions match your values, from using your talents to serve something bigger than yourself.
And that sense of service, it doesn't have to be this huge heroic thing. It can be just being there for a neighbor,
Mm.
volunteering your time for something you believe in, or just trying to be a little kinder, a little more compassionate in your everyday life.
So it's not about waiting for this big chance to make a difference. It's about realizing that every time you're generous, every time you try to grow your talents and share them, that's a contribution.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that's where the real magic of this parable is. It helps you see yourself as someone who can create change, to realize that each of us, we can make things better, even if it's just a little bit.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, what's the one question, the one thing we want our listener to really think about?
Well, what if we think about all our resources, our time, our skills, what we know, even the people we know, all of that, as talents that we've been given?
Okay.
What would we have to change in our thinking, in what we do, in what we make a priority to really multiply those talents, to create this ripple effect of good in the world?
That's a really powerful question to consider.
Yeah.
It's a challenge to not just admire what the parable is saying, but to actually start living it out in your own way.
And remember, this journey of developing your talents, making a difference, it's not something you have to do alone.
Right.
Connect with others, share what you're good at, help each other along the way. Just like those servants in the story, they probably work together. Learn from each other. We can do the same. We can work together, share ideas, and support each other as we grow.
Well, thank you so much for joining us for this deep dive into the parable of the talents. It's been a really, really great conversation.
The pleasure was all mine.
And to you, our listener, thank you for trusting us with your request. We hope this has sparked some new ideas for you and maybe given you a fresh sense of purpose. Remember, you have something special to offer this world, and we can't wait to see all the incredible things you'll do.